The injuries are piling up and the FAAB is disappearing. On tonight's episode of the In Between Fantasy Football podcast, we let you know what budget-friendly options to consider even after the Week 6 waiver wires run. So let's lock in, unwind, and dive into the program.
Cause I've been in tune, out of touch, coming off the bench, trying to shake the funk, check a stat line, see who's up, that over under hit too clutch.
And I'm trying to avoid getting carried away with the jet sweep, sleeping on a trick play, predicting all of my moves like they seen every play. And so I'm running it back, head down, get out of my way. And it's for the law with only one thing to do. I guess I'll say a prayer and put it all on the line for you. What they don't know, something they haven't seen. I find a gap on the screen and hit them right in between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. Just one thing to say, yeah, what they don't know, something they haven't seen. I'm off that mean Joe Green, it got me fading between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is October 10th, 2023. The In Between Fantasy Football podcast is back with you as we jump headfirst into Week 6 of the NFL season. We're already a fourth of the way through it, and we're going to make the most of what remains. I am Seth Woolcock, and tonight I am joined by my co-host, who some refer to him as the most handsome fantasy football analyst in the greater Seattle area. I just call him my pal. Give it up for the award-nominated Scott Rynier. Scott, how you feeling after a bye week for the city of Seattle?
It was nice. It's kind of nice to have a bye week. I kind of wish for the Seahawks' sake it was a little later in the season. Week
for sure.
A little early. But hey, on bye, no one could go on IR, so that was good.
Yeah, and we definitely had a lot of those that we'll talk about tonight. And folks, we are delighted to be joined by an illustrator and graphic designer of Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. She's a fantasy football analyst and perhaps maybe the biggest Steelers fan on the internet right now. She is Samantha Holt. Sam, how are you? Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much for having me. I feel like that's quite an intro, and I don't know that I can live up to it. I mean, I love my boys, but I gotta say, bleed black and yellow all day. All of my fandom, all of my family know. There's a reason why I have nothing but like Steelers stuff all over my entire house. It's pretty ridiculous.
Well, we appreciate that. And Sam, how does one become a Steelers fan out in the state of California?
I know it's a bit random. I have zero ties to Pennsylvania. No family lives there. None of us live there. Actually, my dad's from England, and when he moved to the States, he had to pick an NFL team because he, joined up and wanted to learn about American football. So he was watching a game and picked the Steelers to win because they were wearing the same colors as his home soccer club, Oxford United, and they won the game. So he said, "Hey, I'm a Steelers fan," and that was early '80s, pre me being born. So I got to join that train and remain a Steelers fan ever since.
Well, good for him. I'm glad you got to have a piece of that ride, except for now when we are in the Matt Canada era. We'll talk a little bit more about the Steelers and what's going on out there in Pittsburgh later in the show. And we have quite the show lined up for everyone tonight. We have some headline hijinks, some lighthearted discussion about some of the Week 5 fallout. We're going to get to some in the scope. That's our value saving your FAAB waiver wire segment. And listen, I have some friends right now, guys, that are already like, I can't add anyone. My team's fucked. And I'm like, guys, you spent $76 in week 1 on Joshua Kelly. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Like, Scott, if they've been listening to this show, they got Puka Nacua before week 1. They got Logan Thomas before last week. Like, that's kind of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, no, and it's good because I have some leagues where I am fresh out of FAAB. So, but more out of desperation because of all the injuries than I would say overpaying for someone like Joshua Kelly. All right, Joshua Kelly.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm glad to hear that. We'll round it out tonight, guys, with some From the Forum powered by the Fantasy Football Advice Network. And tonight on the show, we're also joined by the producer of the show, Kyle Scott, and a Permani sandwich hater. Love Kyle Scott, but your Permani sandwich take is god awful, my friend.
Yeah, I'm a as a Pittsburgh resident, I'm a big Pittsburgh hater. I hate Probanis. I hate the Steelers. I hate hockey. I'm not meant for this town, but here I am anyway.
Yeah, you're the transplant there. We appreciate you either way, Kyle. We're also joined by the IBT family, and thank you everyone for the support. We got Hoove in the chat. What's up, Hoove? Thanks for joining us. We got Albert. Good evening, IBT. Good evening, Albert. Thanks for joining us. Hoove's pumped up to see Sam on the show tonight, and we got Bruce Matson in the chat. What's up, Bruce? Good to see you tonight, man. Rachel, hello, Rachel. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Who have a little respect for the Brits out there. We appreciate that. We got Tyler in the chat. Appreciate you all. Appreciate you, Tyler. Thanks so much for making us part of your Tuesday, our friend. And guys, let's go ahead and jump into it here with the first segment of the night, a little headline hijinks. All right, it's headline hijinks. So we're going to fill in the blank from these movie quotes, and all these quotes come from the final the final line of a movie. So we're going to start with a movie that if you haven't seen it yet and you want to be sad for about an hour and a half, go ahead and fire this one up. This from Toy Story 3. So long, partner, is this quote, and we're going to fill in so long here. Sam, have you seen Toy Story 3? Your thoughts on the movie?
Yes, I have a pulse. I've seen Toy Story 3. Absolutely major fan. Yeah, Pixar's really good at doing the one thing we don't want to do, which is cry while watching a cartoon. But we're really they nail it. Something in the producers, I don't know what it is, who has that hurt from childhood. They're like, who needs to cry? All adults to children. And then the kids always cry a bit later and like, why is mom and dad crying already at this movie? But they get us. They just do. It's crazy.
They do. Scott, have you introduced your kids to the Pixar and exclusively Toy Story yet?
Oh, yeah. We've watched all of them many, many, many times, which, I mean, I feel lucky to be a parent during Pixar because I look forward to the new movies. Although I will say, to Sam's point, we had a movie night at the school a couple of years ago, and they showed Coco. And so, you're in a dark cafeteria watching a movie with all these kids, and then the movie ends and they turn on the bright lights. And all the adults are crying or trying to hide the fact that they're crying like I was. But no, I'm a big fan. I don't think there's a Pixar movie I've not enjoyed.
All right. Well, guys, let's say so long to at least a player on our fantasy team right now as well. And this was a gruesome week. I felt like week 4 and 5, we kind of got, free of some major injuries to fantasy football players. But Sam, who is someone that you are saying so long to right now?
I mean, I know that it's going to sound weird because he's not supposed to be out the rest of the season, but I'm saying so long to Justin Jefferson because the way that the Vikings are sitting right now, why would they rush a franchise player like Justin Jefferson back? I mean, there's been quotes already from the coaching staff that, we're having to protect Justin from himself right now and trying to make sure that he makes the right move so he can get 100% healthy. But let's say he comes back and they have yet to win another game and they remain in this losing column, which based on the matchups they have coming up could absolutely happen. Why would they rush him back? Similar to the Cooper Kupp situation last year with LA, they're not going to rush back someone where they're not in a position to win in the first place. So if he comes back and the Vikings are still in a losing situation, I can imagine that hamstring, hindering him a bit. Maybe he has half participation. Maybe he sits out half of the game. Maybe something else comes up and he is no longer available rest of season. So for myself as a Justin Jefferson owner and lover, he's amazing. Yes. I'm very saddened today. It is a dark day.
Well, and I think something we need to keep in mind as well is the contract situation. He doesn't have a new long-term deal with this franchise yet. So that could, could be a Lamar Jackson thing that lingers here down the stretch. Scott, your thoughts on Jay Jet here as we say goodbye to him for a little while, at least 4 weeks. He's going on the IR with a pretty serious hamstring injury. Thoughts on Justin Jefferson and who you are saying goodbye to as well? At least for now.
I mean, Justin Jefferson, he was mine and many, many others 101, outside of Superflex leagues. So, I mean, anytime that player, and he was living up to it. Anytime a player like that goes down for any stretch of time, it's sad. And it's just kind of a
never missed a game in his career as well.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs in Minnesota. You know, I mean, good points all around about his contract and not rushing him back, and the conspiracy rumors that Kirk Cousins could get traded, and that Jefferson has, been quoted to say, "I'm going with Kirk." All this stuff just is very concerning. I mean, again, I don't think this segment is about like I'm cutting these players and putting them on the waiver wire. It's just somebody I'm saying bye to for a little while. So, which brings me to mine, which I feel like we just said hi to this guy. And that's Achane. It's just, I have a team. It's our good friend Nate Polvote's home league that he invited me to a few years ago, and I've just had bum luck. My three top starters on that team are Anthony Richardson, Achane, and James Conner. So pretty tough week for me. But Achane, it's one of those things where, it shouldn't hurt managers as much as somebody like Jefferson because you didn't spend a lot of capital on him.
Certainly. But you grew to love him. You grew to love that.
With the other injuries that have mounted, like I desperately needed him, and now he's on the shelf. And aside from my teams, I mean, it was one of the funnest backs to watch, since he got healthy and put up that monster game. So again, not dropping him, obviously, put him in an IR slot, but planning to go without him and planning to try and get Jeff Wilson off waivers is, I guess, the move.
Yeah, I've seen him stashing a couple IRs this whole season as well. So those people kind of made out at the right time here. Raheem Mostert, a little bit of a boost here, I think, moving forward as well, Scott. Let's round it out with our sweet prince here over at IBT. It's Anthony Richardson. I'm saying goodbye to you, partner. He has now left 3 of 5 games with an injury. It's looking like a grade 3 AC joint sprain, which this is pretty much what Derek Carr has right now, but way worse. It's basically the more severe version of it. 4 to 8 weeks is what we're looking like if he does not opt for surgery. And I just feel so mixed on this all, guys. Like, I don't know how you feel about it, but like the upside is clearly there. This guy could be a league winner if he gets back healthy. But we now see what the downside is. And for a guy of his stature, Sam, I thought this wouldn't happen. Maybe that, like, we know he's a running quarterback. We know there's always a threat of injury, but he's not like Lamar Jackson size. He's a bigger guy. So I just thought maybe we'd have a bigger leeway. But it reminds you of RG3. It reminds you of Cam Newton and those situations.
Absolutely. But you also look at players like Josh Allen, who is a big mobile quarterback. Yes. And what has Josh Allen had to learn every single year that the coaching staff can't seem to get into his head? That he needs to protect himself on the run. And I think that this is really a detriment to the coaching staff and not preparing Richardson better for the NFL. Because what happens is these college quarterbacks come in and they're used to running in that situation. And it is just so different to run there versus in the NFL. The size of guys that are hitting you, the power that's behind these moves, just the amount of endurance they have to put up with is so different, in my opinion. So to me, it's just really that the coaching staff has let him down, in my opinion, by not trying to coach him up better preseason of saying, hey, we want you to do the thing that you're amazing at, but in order to do that the best possible way, here's how you fall. Here's how you need to run. This is how you need to slide. And he hasn't done any of the things that he needs to do to protect himself. Every single game he's been out, he's done a move that you're like, do you care about your body? Do you care about finishing the season? And I really think that comes down to coaching staff. It's not his fault. He is young. He's a rookie and he's trying to do what he's great at. But the coaching staff is really behind him not being better about fixing those issues. So I agree that, I mean, could he come back a little bit? Sure. But he's going to keep making these same mistakes until he fixes the mechanics of not sacrificing the body in order to make the big run.
Scott, looking at Gardner Minshew, who now steps in as the starter. Last 5 starts for him, all in the Shane Steichen offense, some of them with Philadelphia, averaging 20.4 fantasy points per game. That would be good for QB8 on the season right now if we're going off averages. He has the Jags, Browns, Saints, Panthers, Patriots. So some good matchups in the Jags and the Panthers and the Patriots, but we do have, a duo of tough ones with the Browns and Saints. Are you interested in picking up Gardner in a 1 quarterback league? Or I know you have him in a lot of super flex leagues as well.
I mean, it really depends on who else is there. I mean, basically, I mean, I put all my eggs in one basket with Richardson this year. I have him on like 50% of my teams.
I have a lot of Richardson.
Yeah, I have him on my Scott Fishbowl team. I have him. So in Superflex 2 quarterback systems, I mostly have Minshew. I mean, this isn't the first time he's gotten hurt. This isn't the first time he's gotten hurt in game. So I made sure to get Minshew in those cases.
Can I tell a quick horror story I have going on?
Sure.
No.
Okay.
Did you drop Minshew?
Do it.
Scott Fishbowl. It's like week 2. He gets hurt or whatever, the concussed. I go out to the waiver wire streets. I actually add him for free somehow. Didn't pay any FAAB for him in Scott Fishbowl. I pick him up. I put him on the bench. I had Daniel Jones and Mac Jones. So I was feeling good. Mac Jones was being a ripper to start the season. I was feeling
first 2 games he was throwing.
Yeah, I was feeling fucking good. I'm like, I'm not gonna ever play Gardner Minshew no matter what. I dropped him for Calvin Austin, and now I have Calvin Austin, Daniel Jones who has a neck injury, no Anthony Richardson, and Mac fucking Jones. So the kid's hurt right now. Don't drop your super flex handcuffs.
But in one QB, like if I had Richardson and I didn't have a backup plan, I'm a streamer. I am now a QB streamer moving forward, and in a bunch of my leagues is just based on rostership. Stafford's, we could talk about that later, but Stafford's a good pick.
Can I tell you another?
It's just so deflating because of the ceiling with Richardson. And I think he'll end up having a good career. It's just exactly like Sam said. I mean, Josh Allen had to go through this. It's just, we saw a barrage of injuries in a really short amount of time, which psychologically,
it feels like it's personal at this rate with the amount of injuries that are happening. And just to the testament of like the QB juggle, I actually won my weekend this weekend without starting a single quarterback. That tells you how crazy fantasy is right now, that the lineup that I put forth, sans QB, won by 20 points just because Davante Achane, got me the points that I needed to, despite having to leave me. And then I started Sam Laporta in my offensive players position. And it's just, I've got these other guys that are going off in different places, managed to get the win. I don't know what I'm going to do next week, but we'll see. Got to keep doing the shuffle.
I had the flip side of that. I was playing my brother in the longest standing home league, typical story. But I lost by like 2, and Richardson was my quarterback. So he went out in game, only got like 5 points, and lost by like 2.
Yeah,
it's brutal.
R.I.P. Yeah, we will miss Anthony Richardson. I'm living that streaming life now, though, in the 1 quarterback leagues as well, Scott. Fire him on your IR and let's see what happens. Let's go to Casablanca for our next film here. And have you guys seen Casablanca? Any takers on Casablanca?
Yes.
It's been a while, but yeah, I've seen it.
Been a hot minute, but I've seen it.
Okay. Kyle, I think you said you saw Casablanca in theaters recently, right?
Yeah, I did actually. There was a showing of Casablanca at the theater I worked at, and so I got to see it for free, and it was great.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Awesome. All right. Quote is, blank, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Lois was the original name here. We're filling it in with a player that we can begin to trust and feel confident about in our starting lineups. Scott, I want to throw it to you, man. Who are you feeling confident about moving forward?
Okay, so like I was saying pre-show, I feel like this is a good opportunity to check myself and
check yourself for your record.
Well, I mean, and just like test out my own potential take lock on players. My player is Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis is somebody I've been down on forever. I've stuck to he has boomer bust, doesn't earn a lot of targets. He's one of those guys that the cardiac kings, the wind sprinters, on the field a lot, high snap share, lots of routes, very low targets per route run. Up until this season, that's basically what he had been. And even this season, I was tweeting out after the first few weeks, hey, Gabe Davis scored a touchdown. Make sure to sell high. All snarky like I'm right about everything. But he scored a touchdown in 4 straight games. He's had 7 targets in week 2, 8 targets in week 5. He's put up a 90-yard game, a 60-yard game, a 100-yard game. I mean, I'm not saying, okay, now I think he's a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1. I have moved back from, my absolutely no way on Gabe Davis to, actually he's been pretty usable. And it hasn't been due to an injury. He's been right alongside Diggs. So he's just being utilized more, and he's scoring touchdowns. So I mean, you can't, you have to walk a fine line when you start blaming or knocking a player for touchdowns, because it's like, we want touchdowns, right? But you have to work it in there with, well, are they relying too much on touchdowns? He's been scoring them, but he has not been relying on them for his fantasy points as much this year. So I'm coming around on Gabriel.
It's been fun, man. And if you chose to go on this ride, I saw a lot of people actually like go for the discount stack of Josh Allen and Gabe Davis. Those people have been rewarded heavily here. Sam, how do you feel about Gabe Davis moving forward after a great showing in London?
Great showing in London. I get what you mean in terms of, maybe it's a hesitation of commitment for like, am I really going to be all in on Gabe Davis? Because he was a thing for a hot minute, and then he all of a sudden cooled off like faster than, winter hits the East Coast. Like just all of a sudden was absolutely gone. But it looks like he's continuing to trend up in the right direction, especially in terms of target usage and just completions. He's just been much more consistent. I mean, you look at the next game coming up against the Giants, and that matchup doesn't scare you at all. New England looks just like a horrible shadow of itself. Yeah. Like, so am I as scared of that defense as I used to be? No, probably not. And the rest of this matchup kind of going forward, you have a little bit more confidence in terms of just Tampa Bay, the Bengals, Denver, no one's scared of. Jets maybe a little bit, sure, but I feel like there's other weapons that are going to get the coverages that could keep Gabe Davis open. So I mean, I think that it's a good call. I like it, but it's, I get it. It doesn't feel right to be like, yes, I feel good starting Gabe Davis every week. It doesn't feel good, but does it? Kind of does now. I mean, especially with how many injuries there are.
Before this season, it just seemed like there was a stretch of 2 catches for 50 yards, and then a spike game.
Yeah.
But this year, it's been different. I mean, I think he's top 20 right now in points per game. And I mean, I'm not talking about like, if I have him as my wide receiver too, I'm set. But you didn't draft him to be your wide receiver.
Exactly.
If those larger rosters with 3 wide receivers or multiple flexes, I mean, he's ideal for one of those spots now.
Absolutely.
I'm seeing some questions in the chat, guys. We'll get to those here in our third segment later on in the show, so just stick around for that. Daniel's saying it's sad about Justin Jefferson, but he thinks he made out trading Alexander Mattison for Jordan Addison. And I remember, Daniel, you were in here a couple weeks ago, and you mentioned that trade. I think that'll work out nicely for you here.
Absolutely.
Hoove saying thoughts on Kirk to Washington for Brissett. All right, so Hoove is the master trade maker, and I don't think there will be a Washington reunion for Kirk Cousins. I just don't think Kirk Cousins is getting traded, guys. I really don't.
I don't really either.
I know. Sam, your thoughts on Kirk getting moved?
I get the reason why. I do get where all the conversation's coming from and all the why behind it, but I just don't see them. The Vikings haven't done a hard pivot like that. There's been so many other teams that would do something like that. And this just seems very out of character for them. I also just can't imagine Kirk Cousins going backwards to a team that he was at before. So that also just doesn't seem right. I've heard some talk about him going to the Jets because obviously they're still very in need of a quarterback and someone that can be a pocket passer and utilize all the weapons they have available, because the Jets have pushed their chips all in this season and they're just waiting. So I could see them maybe being aggressive and trying to grab him, but I also just don't see it. I think it's too soon.
All right, Sam, let's get to your player that you are beginning a beautiful friendship with.
I think it goes into a similar category. And I mean, maybe, I don't know. To me, it seems similar to the Gabe Davis one that you just had, Scott, but I feel like I'm trusting Adam Thielen, which also feels weird because I think he might be older than me, which says a lot. I mean, I'm 35 and I'm guessing that Adam Thielen is at least like 39 or 38, but that's just because it seems like he's been in the league for absolutely ever, but he's been so consistent as an option there. And I feel like it's not going to go away anytime soon. I think when you have that, rookie quarterback with a veteran presence that is so, ingrained in the game, you look at the sideline tape, and he is talking to his quarterback over and over again after every play. They're in each other's ear, and he's just got that want to help coach him up and make him available and show him not only when he's open, but when there's other options available as well. So I just think that it's a really good match made in heaven for the two of them to bring Bryce Young up. And obviously, they're going to be playing in nothing but garbage time. So what's amazing about him is they're constantly behind. has to air out the ball, lots and lots of targets to be had. So I think because of that and because of how poorly the rest of the team is playing in order to play catch up, you can feel good starting Thielen every week because they're going to be behind consistently, and he's got that opportunity.
I'm right there with you, Sam. And I think one of the interesting things we heard from Adam Thielen before the season started is he went on the record and said, like, I just wasn't getting usage last year. And like a lot of people thought he was washed. I was not in that camp. I was someone heavily targeting Thielen in the later portion of drafts because I saw just kind of a lack of usage there. And so it's been good to see him get that. And, he went to the Panthers thinking he could win still. I don't know about that. That was also another quote from him. I think more he was chasing the bag, but still, he's been great for fantasy. And I think, like Scott, I think rest of the way, you're at least until there is an injury. If there is an injury, we're not hoping for one, but we know with Kyle telling us backstage, Adam Thielen 33, so 33, pretty close. But do we feel confident with Adam Thielen until there is an issue, Scott? Like set and forget it, wide receiver 2?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's must start right now. I mean, I don't see any. I mean, I was kicking myself. This is such a great call on this question. Just because he fits right in with Gabe Davis, except he is legitimately at least a wide receiver 2 right now, based on how he's being used. His target share is 25 to 35% a week. I think since week 1 was a whole nothing burger for him, but since week 1, he's like 11 targets a game, 9 catches a game, 100 yards a game, and basically a touchdown a game. Like that's what he's averaging. And the Panthers, they throw it. The Vikings are the only team that throws it more than the Panthers. Bryce Young, he unleashes it. They're going to be behind. Yep. As long as he stays healthy. I mean, he could threaten top 12, which is insane to say, but he's got that outcome in his range. So yeah, he's been a revelation because I was like, oh, Adam Thielen. And by the way, he turned 33 49 days ago, according to
Okay,
Pro
so
Football.
I'm still a little bit older.
A little bit, but in football years, that's like 50. So
yeah. So I still haven't messed up my knees. I'm still good. I can't help anyone on their fantasy teams if I had to get thrown in there myself, but I have my ACLs and MCLs intact, so I can say that about myself.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean he's the clear wide receiver 1 for the Panthers.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I'll round us out here with Brock Purdy. He is someone who I just think I liked Brock Purdy coming into this season, but he wasn't someone I was even considering that would be on the radar in a 1 quarterback redraft league. The kid has thrown or has had 2 or more total touchdowns in 10 out of his 11 regular season starts. So I'm going to bet on that guy to get it done. He's surrounded by maybe the best weapons in the league, 3 straight games of 20 plus fantasy points. I think Brock Purdy is a weapon here down the stretch. I don't love him this week against the Browns necessarily. We've got some bad weather up in Cleveland as well. But Vikings, Bengals, Jaguars after that. So very interested in Brock Purdy. I think to me, he is that, we've been looking for it for a while, Scott. Who is that high-end QB2, low-end QB1 who's going to make this jump? Was it going to be Sam Howe? Was it going to be someone in that range? And it looks like it could be Brock Purdy here.
Yeah, easily could be. And this is another one. I mean, I'm a petty Seahawks fan at heart. So, I don't root for the 49ers. And I, was like, oh, I hope they go with Purdy instead of Lance because that's going to be better for everybody else because Purdy's just meh. He's proven me wrong. I'm willing to eat crow on Brock Purdy. He's currently like the QB7 and he does not run. So, I mean, that's impressive. He's a pocket passer for the most part.
He can get rushing touchdowns, though. He still
does get rushing touchdowns, but so did Tom Brady, and we wouldn't call him a runner.
Yeah.
No, he just did a little sneak.
Yeah, little sneaks. But I mean,
sneak.
With his weapons and that the way that team is coached, how can you bet against him? I mean, the only knock on him from a fantasy standpoint, in my eyes, is just there's going to be potentially games where he doesn't need to throw more than 1 touchdown or need to throw more. I mean, this past week he threw 24 passes. If it was the Falcons throwing 24 passes, we'd be all over Arthur Smith. What are you doing? But the 49ers threw 24. It's just that he turned it into 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, he's a guy for sure. I mean, I don't know what his rostership is right now.
I think in ESPN leagues it's about 69% to 70%.
So, I mean, he's the guy on teams where I've lost Richardson. He's who I'm checking for first, just in case he's available, because he's not a streamer. He's a guy I'm probably just starting, even against Cleveland. I mean, they showed what they could do against the vaunted Dallas Cowboys defense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was wrong about Brock Purdy.
All right. A little. I like that, Scott. I always appreciate that. You're willing to admit when you're wrong. And let's round this out with a player who helped us find victory, hopefully in Week 5. Scott, can you do a Rocky impression for me? You've watched a lot of movies. You got one?
Oh boy, I haven't really watched Rocky. I'm not a huge fan. What are some of the Kyle? Can you do it? Can you save my ass?
Yeah, Kyle, what do you got? Can you get this quote and the blank, right?
Yeah, I think I can give it a try.
Let's go.
Adrian.
Yo, Adrian, we did.
That's solid.
That's so much better than I would have done.
That's a great.
Thank you, Kyle.
That's well done.
Man, Kyle, producer and great at impressions. We appreciate that. So this is a player who helped carry us to victory in Week 5 and is a clear fantasy football winner. Sam, how are you feeling after Week 5, man? I thought this was a fun one. We were waiting for so many returns. Jonathan Taylor, a little disappointing. Cooper Kupp, though, got right back at it. And we saw some other players finally break out in what felt like a comeback week.
Definitely felt like a comeback week for some people. I mean, I know that you guys have some guys on your list that are, comeback players. Maybe we didn't expect this much out of them, but my player that I have listed, I didn't expect anything out of him because of Jonathan Taylor. I did not expect Zack Moss to save me the way that he did, like Superman, be like, I'm still here for you, babe. I got you. Like, no, he did not go away. And that was really impressive. And you kind of question after a game like that, how much are they going to continue to lean on Moss versus leaning on Taylor? Like, did they pay him and say, all right, we paid you, but we're going to keep you healthy, and therefore you are not going to be the number one right now? You have to make a question of that because of this game. It's one game. Mm-hmm. You're still going to roll out Jonathan Taylor next week. Am I going to maybe flex Zack Moss again? Maybe. I might just do it. Just like to live crazy and see what the chaos happens. If I have no better options, I'll just go ahead and keep flexing Zack Moss and see if he can do it again until he absolutely drops off the planet. But I'm just saying, he won me a couple. So hats off.
Hats off to you for being ballsy enough to start him, because I think it was about 15% starting ship over on ESPN. So hats off to you, Sam. That took some cojones.
I think it just really had to do with how many options I had available.
Okay. Fair enough.
Well, it was Jonathan Taylor coming back, combined with the Titans have a really tough run defense.
Yes,
absolutely.
For him to go off like he did on that defense
says a lot.
Zack Moss of all, I feel like I'm living in like an alternate universe this season.
Dude, I mean, man, people have been getting buried for years of the love for Zack Moss, and now here he is doing what people thought coming out of Iowa State that he could do. So hats off to him. I'll talk about another running back, same school, Breece Hall. I mean, wow. If you took Breece Hall in the 4th or 5th rounds of your fantasy drafts, it finally happened. Celebrate, enjoy it, man. And it was so fun, especially because this was the same field where just about a year ago he tore his ACL and comes out 22 carries, 177 yards, the long touchdown, adds a little bit in the receiving game as well. And it kind of all was leading up to this. We had Achane and Mostert and Khalil Herbert go off after this defense. And it was like, okay, it's only Breece Hall's time. It has to be. And then early in the week, Robert Saleh says, hey, training wheels are off, no snap count. And I don't think Dalvin Cook has much left in him, guys. He has not shown anything. And you want to look at the running back, number 1 in yards per carry with RBs over 40 carries. Sorry, Davante Achane, I'm not qualifying you for this. 7.2 yards per carry, Breece Hall, guys. He's a fucking alien. And he reminds me of Adrian Peterson and how he came back from the ACL. I'm gonna go get my jersey out of the closet. I'm pumped.
I should have worn my Frisky Jets t-shirt. They're not as frisky as we thought they were going to be. They're frisky in a different way because Rodgers is gone.
Yes.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, as a Breece Hall truther, whatever you want to call it, he's a guy in Dynasty. After he got hurt, I bought low wherever I possibly could, and then just waited. But yeah, I mean, 22 carries, dominated the rushing market in this game, and it was almost one of those things where it happens in fantasy. It seems like from time to time where you've got this perfect alignment of a really, really good matchup, really, really good running back, and then you're disappointed but it didn't happen. We got the massive game. We got the massive game we've been waiting for. As far as I know, as far as I've read, he came out of it, no setbacks, nothing like that. I don't think he's like 100% pre-injury Breece Hall. I heard some people talking about it, but he seems to have that straight line speed back. I mean, you saw that on that touchdown. Side to side, he's probably still working back a little bit.
Yeah.
But, if a guy can go 22 for 177 and a touchdown when he's still kind of working back from an injury,
it's pretty good.
I mean, that's okay. It's pretty good.
We'll take it.
Katie comes downstairs and she was upstairs and she says, I figured you'd be screaming by now. And I said, what are you talking about? And then I guess I was on a little bit of delay. I see it. I stand up. I'm wearing my jersey. I'm freaking out. The day was good. But yeah, sleeper, getting a little bit ahead there. I kind of knew something was coming. Scott, round us out here. Who is a player that you welcome back? And then we'll get into some questions.
Well, I'll provide a little bit of context. It's DJ Moore. I'll provide a little bit of context, though, because the technical title of this is player who helped fantasy managers to victories. So I'm talking about DJ Moore with every fantasy manager except for me.
Oh,
in my league, I only have him in one league. And Thursday, Friday morning, I'm like, all right, I got this. I ended up losing the game. But that happens. It happens in fantasy football. I beat somebody with Jamar Chase in a different league, so it's all good. But I mean, DJ Moore is finally, I think he's being used in the proper way. And it's just nice too, because everybody a couple weeks ago had just buried Justin Fields. It was like, we're done with him because he had a couple bad games. And when Justin Fields gets buried, his pass catchers and his weapons are going to get buried with him. It's been exactly the opposite since then. I mean, Justin Fields has found something because he's now, I think he's been at least top 3 fantasy QB over the last few weeks. And I mean, DJ Moore, that was a Calvin Johnson like game. It was a Jamar Chase like game. 3 touchdowns.
It was also some terrible coverage by Adoree. Jackson was just getting absolutely burned.
I agree, but I mean, it'd be one thing too if that was his only good game. I mean, take that game out. Take week one.
He's been great.
Week one out. Take this week out. He's still right around 100 yards and a touchdown a game. So I was a huge DJ Moore guy when he first came in the league, and I was on that frustration train with everybody.
We've never seen this ceiling too.
Watching him in Carolina. Well, that's the thing. I mean, talent-wise, he's, I think a lot of people have agreed. Talent-wise, he's always had like a wide receiver one
upside.
He's just it's just never clicked. And it's, at least for right now, I don't know about next week, but he's a healthy receiver that's dominating. And like I said, 99.99% of the people that started him likely won their week.
Always being the 0.01, Scott.
What's crazy about Justin Fields too is like you said that everyone buried him last week and they just said, we're done with you. This is almost exactly the same time last year everyone did the exact same thing. And we said, we are done with you. I know for myself too, because I dropped Cole Kmet like a bad habit last year. And I was like, why did I even bother thinking you were going to be anything? And absolutely week 5, week 6, went absolutely up. And then the rest of the season, everyone's talking, rookie of the year type comments for Justin Fields in terms of his performance. So maybe what happens when you're a Bear, you're just when you're a player in that situation, maybe you just need the city of Chicago to just bear down, if you will, on you to feel that pressure and that you can then rise from the ashes and then come back up. Maybe they need this cyclically. So maybe next season, it's going to be the same thing. The first 4 weeks, we're going to be like, why did we even try? And then week 5 comes right back up.
Hey, Seth, real quick. Just want to ask you a quick little trivia question.
Ooh.
Specifically, this is for Seth. Over the last 2 weeks, if you just look at the last 2 weeks, who is the tight end one?
I know. It's fucking Cole Kmet. I know. He's like tight end 3. Listen,
we were just a little early with our whole Cole Kmet club. We were like 2 years early.
2 years early on the Cole Kmet club.
Yeah.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
Although my club of the Sam Laporta club is doing really well. Everyone drinks free.
A super fun club. Yes.
That stays up after 3 a.m. for sure. At the Sam Laporta club.
No, the club does not close.
Yeah.
We're all exhausted from partying so hard.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get some questions here in from the forum.
If you're up, stuck, thinking about what to do, here in between, we got advice for you. Back and forth all day, trying to pick the play. Let's hear what them boys here had to say.
presented by the Fantasy Football Advice Network.
All right, the Fantasy Football Advice Network, guys, it's your time to get involved with this. It is a program that combines a lot of the great social medias we like, Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, and puts them all together in a place where you can support analysts. You can just be interactive with the community. So make sure you're checking out the Fantasy Football Advice Network over there at fantasyfootballadvice.com. And use the promo code IBT. You're going to get yourself 25% off. It's a really fun platform. They have a dope-ass app that just dropped here in the last couple of months as well. So get involved now because, like, the discussion is always going on, and if you need some great advice, it's the only place to go. So let's go ahead and get some questions here in the chat. Saw some ones early in the show come in. We'll go ahead and grab those. All right. Give Garrett Wilson for Fields. 14-man league, and he has Richardson. Wow, that's a real tester, these nuts. If you're still with us, I would love to know your other wide receivers. But in a vacuum, Sam, could you make this trade?
Oof. I mean, in a vacuum, I guess I'm curious to know what the rest of your team looks like, because in order to give up, a top wide receiver, which where you drafted him and given everything else, I wonder what your other receiving weapons are. And if you have another clear and adept, like number one wide receiver, maybe you don't feel so bad giving up that piece. And I feel like what people tend to forget is when you look at trades, you want things to be even, but you also need to look at your circumstance and see how many other offers you have available on the table to get something better. So if this is the best offer this person's received so far in terms of, Fields for Richardson, then maybe it's the right move for you. But I'm curious to know what your receiving core looks like, because I would hate to give up a piece just so that you can fulfill that void when you probably have other options available.
14-man too, Scott. This is one of those like not a lot of options on the waiver wire in general, let alone at the quarterback position. So I think it is an even trade.
I think it's pretty even. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously based on current circumstances. I mean, if you looked at this trade at the start of the season, no, I'm keeping Garrett Wilson 100 times out of 100 in that case. But with the quarterback issues in New York, he's not a surefire wide receiver one every week. It's just that's just not the case as much as I want it to be. But I would definitely need a little bit more context. I'd want to know, what other receivers are going to have to pick up the pace here, and then just potentially what other quarterbacks are available. But in 14 team, I mean, this could be a move where, Fields has the ceiling. Fields has that ceiling. We've seen it. And so if you can gain that advantage at that position, I think my gut, if you said, hey, you have to choose and you don't get any more context, I'm taking Fields.
Okay. There's a fun tool over on fantasylife.com called the trade rate my trade tool. And I went ahead and plugged this one in, and obviously you get to see the consensus in terms of percentage win when it comes to the trade. And the winning side goes to Garrett Wilson, but the percent difference is 52% to 47%. Okay, so this is a very close trade.
Yeah.
But again, this goes back to what are your other options? And if you have absolutely checked the market and you don't have anything better out there, then this is probably the move for you.
All right. Love it. We have one from Say here. Should I trade Olave for Garrett Wilson and Evan Ingram with the Christian Kirk to the Jets rumors? What's with all these Jets rumors? Why would the Jets be trading for Christian Kirk?
Because they're frisky, man. Frisky Jets.
I'm sorry, Say, but they already have McCole Hardman that they're not using. They're not going to trade for Christian Kirk. And why would the Jaguars trade Christian Kirk when he's been an absolute monster for them?
Yeah.
So, I'm just gonna say no. I wouldn't make this trade. You're selling low on Olave right now, and I'm not the biggest Olave guy this season. I haven't been. You can attest to that, Scott. But I'm still not selling low here for these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's really tough. It's really tough to get recency bias out of my head because it has not been great for the Saints lately. And I really like Evan Ingram. I think he's one of the better tight ends in the league. I think this is a little closer to even than maybe you do, Seth. And I think
it's close to even, but I think Olave is still the best player in the deal. And
I would agree.
Unless I really have no depth on my team and I feel like I need to break it up, that's probably the only way I'm doing this. Sam, could you be talked into this? And your thoughts on Christian Kirk, who's apparently maybe a Jet sometime soon, according to the internet.
That makes no sense.
With Kirk to the Jets rumors. I feel like there's a lot of rumors this week, and I'm seeing a trend, and there's a lot of Jets rumors. Guys, let's calm down. Like, I mean, I know that Zach Wilson had a great
quarterback. Yeah.
Let's calm down. I think we need to just take a moment and take a breather with some of these rumors, because, I mean, who knows? Maybe the trade deadline is going to be absolutely insane this year. But I also don't feel like fantasy is a situation where you need to be, grabbing an umbrella, going outside when it's sunny. Like, guys, like let's pivot when we get there, because if you make a trade like this because you think someone else is moving, you think the move is happening and it doesn't happen, then you've just given up a big piece and you shouldn't have done it. To me, I'm not with this trade. I feel like it's too soon for something this aggressive. And I feel like Olave for Garrett Wilson and Evan Ingram is a lot of value for Olave. I am huge on Olave. I have a lot of shares of him, and I still feel like this is an uneven trade.
Okay, we got one from Caleb. Should I trade Justin Jefferson and Josh Allen for Tua and Jamar? He also has Tyreek, so he would have the stack. Scott, this one's close, but I think I might consider this.
Should I trade Justin Jefferson and Allen for Tua? Well, right now, yeah. Justin Jefferson's on IR. I'm doing that. If it's redraft, yeah, I'm doing this in a second.
Especially,
it's a little bit of a step down from Josh Allen to Tua, but not. It's a little bit of a ceiling step down, but I don't think it's that much of a step down. And Jamar Chase, I mean, you saw what just happened. I mean, Seahawks, that's our next opponent, and I really wish we would have caught the Bengals in week 1 or 2 and not now. So I would do this.
Okay, Sam, should I trade James Cook and Ridley for Kyren Williams, 12-team PPR?
Oops, sorry.
You're like, no. I'm like,
no. Not my turn.
No. I mean, I'm not really a big fan of 2-for-1 deals because, I mean, I don't feel like, 2 nickels don't exactly equal a dime in fantasy football. It doesn't actually equate that way. So no, I don't know. This doesn't feel right for me. I'm good.
I think you're just buying Kyren Williams way too high here. Like James, yeah. I don't even know if I would do James Cook straight up for Kyren Williams. Then you're throwing in Ridley too.
Yeah, that seems like you're giving up a lot for him. I feel like the person that has Kyren Williams knows how valuable he is. So he's saying, "Oh, I deserve 2 players," but the ones that he's picked, I don't think make sense.
Yeah. I will say I did trade Kyren Williams last week in a super flex for Joe Burrow and Dameon Pierce. So I am very, very thrilled with that. Try to buy low on Burrow a little bit. Kenny Pickett was not doing it as the QB too. So
sorry, it happens.
Yeah, it does. It does. Should I drop Jameson Williams for Roschon Johnson? Rest of season redraft, half PPR. If you need a running back, I'm fine with this move. I think Jameson Williams is always going to be more of a stash. Am I right, guys?
Yeah, I think Jameson Williams, I mean, could be wrong, but I don't think he's going to be providing a lot of fantasy relevance right away. So it depends on the structure of your team. It depends on where you're, are you looking for help right now, or are you in a good spot? Because I really like Roschon Johnson. He has to clear his concussion protocol. He left that Thursday night game with concussion, but he's going to come back to a wide open running back group. I like him a lot better than I like Dante Foreman. So I think at this point with a high ankle sprain for Khalil Herbert, he might come back to not having his starting job anymore with Roschon Johnson. Because you never want anybody to get hurt, obviously. But with Roschon Johnson, this is the scenario. One of the scenarios we talked about coming into the season. Like, he could have some standalone value because there's no true dominant stud running back on the team. And if there's an injury in front of him, that could be all he needs to take that starting gig. And I think that's what happens. So I'm definitely doing this.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're waiting for Williams to simmer a little bit too long rather than going for someone again, given the market that it is for running backs, you want to get someone that has the potential to be the every down back. And I mean, I think that that's the right move. So if you don't have anyone else you're willing to give up, because I do agree, I feel like Williams is a decent stash, then I think that picking up Roschon right now, again, given just how many injuries there are. And if you're looking and making this question, it's because you're dealing with a running back injury or issue. So I would go ahead and make that move.
Okay, we got one from Josh here. Goff and McLaurin for Trevor Lawrence. He has CJ Stroud as other quarterback. I am not making this move. I think Goff and Lawrence at this point are pretty much equal playing field. Goff is super predictable. We know what he's going to do. Fire him up at home. He's a little bit more risky. on the road, but he's been excellent at home. I don't think I want to move him even for Lawrence, maybe straight up. I think they're still pretty close. And then adding McLaurin, Sam, I don't know about your teams, but mine do not have enough depth just to throw a wide receiver 2-3 like McLaurin in like that.
Yeah, that I don't know what kind of league you're playing in where you can just chuck him in there as a haphazard thought. No, I feel like you've got too much value here just for a straight up trade like this. And I think the consistency going forward is just kind of sky's the limit for both Goff and McLaurin. So I'd rather have them right now. I can understand that you'd want to be behind the playoff, like eager Jags right now and want Lawrence for that reason. But I feel like I know that Jared Goff is not a sexy quarterback to be starting every week. Doesn't feel good. You want to have the lovely sunshine flowing hair of Trevor Lawrence behind your squad. I get it. But Goff's doing it for you. He's doing just fine. And he's going to keep going that way because his coach teaches his team to bite kneecaps off of their opponents. So I think that you'll be just fine.
Yeah, CJ Stroud and Goff, you can alternate those, man. You're going to be good. Last one from the chat, Puka and Achane for Tyreek Hill. Should I accept it? If I can get Tyreek Hill for this batch, I'm absolutely doing it. Tyreek Hill, let's not forget, was a first-round pick, still holding that value as the current wide receiver 1. These are 2 guys you either got off waivers or at the end of your drafts. It's like you said earlier, Scott, Achane's not playing right now for at least the next couple of weeks. So like, I don't know how you couldn't accept this.
No, I think this is like a perfect example of a sell high on both Puka and Achane. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if Achane was healthy, I'd probably still do it for Tyreek Hill. I mean, he's arguably with Justin Jefferson now on the shelf. I mean, I don't see who else is going to be the wide receiver 1. I mean, it could be somebody else, but it easily could be him. So yeah, I'm doing this. I'm definitely doing this.
I'm going back and forth on if I would do this. I mean, I think given the situation with Achane being hurt, it makes it easier to pull the trigger on this. But if this was a dynasty league, I would be hesitant just because we're looking for, when I'm building a dynasty team, I want to make sure that I've got, years under my belt. You've got the youth of Puka and Achane. I feel like that's so much more valuable in dynasty. And I get the reason why you'd want Tyreek Hill. If you're also in a situation in dynasty where I am in one league where I'm making trades and sacrificing some long-term depth because I feel like I can win the championship this year. Mm-hmm. Okay, then this is the move that you make, and that still holds value. So it really just depends on the position of you are in to win, and also if you're in redraft or in your dynasty. Yeah. I think it really just depends on your weapons. But this is a very tempting trade to just pull the trigger on right away, especially given the injury.
All right.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Like dynasty is a completely different story. I doubt unless I'm just like, okay, I'm winning right now.
Yeah,
I'm not shopping Puka and Achane for Tyreek Hill at this point. In redraft, though, this is a no-brainer for me.
Okay. All right, here's one from the forum to round out this segment. If I trade Davante Adams or CeeDee Lamb, what players should I target in return? And I think my general advice for this person is, while I understand you're frustrated with Davante Adams and CeeDee Lamb, I think this is a panic trade. These are still wide receiver 1s, and you're selling them at their lowest. Last year, pie on my face, I sold Davante Adams after that horrible stretch of games, saw a lot of good cornerbacks coming down the stretch, and I missed out on a lot of good times. And while I still don't love Adams rest of season, he's still a wide receiver 1, and you're selling him low. So with that being said, Sam, is there anyone that you think, if you do have one of these players, you would be making a move for, whether that's going to a different position or staying at the wide receiver position?
My concern is if you're trying to trade these players, you're not going to get the value back that you want in their return. The reason why you're wanting to move them is because they're not hitting exactly the way you want to right now. Well, the other guys and girls in your leagues are also seeing them do the same thing. So I think that they'd be buying low on these players and taking advantage of the trade in terms of who you'd actually get. So who should I target? You're going to want another wide receiver 1. And unless you've got others and you're looking for a leading top running back, it's hard to put just in a vacuum who you could get for this. I feel like you should wait. I think there are better matchups ahead. There's better days ahead for both of them. And we're just in a rut right now for week 5 heading into week 6. So both have better matchups coming up going forward. And, both need to perform. Adams obviously is very unhappy there with the Raiders, and we're not surprised. They made the trade for him, and he got reunited with his best friend, and they promptly sent him away. So the Raiders need to keep him involved in order to keep Adams happy before he goes ahead and sits out, because he's got the ability to do so. Similar with CeeDee Lamb, obviously the Cowboys have a lot to prove considering they came in as hot as they did and absolutely got squashed. There's going to be better days ahead for CeeDee Lamb as well. So unfortunately, I feel like this is a moment where you've got to practice some patience, because if you put both of these guys on the block, I don't think you're going to be getting good value for them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think both these guys are buy lows right now, especially CeeDee Lamb. I mean, Adams was a, almost a game time decision this week, and he played. He didn't have a great game. Other than that, he's been Davante Adams, like almost 13 targets a game, almost a touchdown a game. Like, I don't know where this Adams isn't performing other than this past week. Yeah, I guess it was last night, wasn't it? Other than that, he's a guy I'm not concerned about in the slightest. CeeDee Lamb has been underperforming just from what we expect, but I think CeeDee Lamb is a really good buy low. So I'd want to be on the other side of this trade. You know what I mean?
Which again is not favoring the listener and viewer that's asking the question. We want to get them the best value. We don't want to be giving your league mates the value right now, and that's who's going to be getting it.
Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm. What about like Kenneth Walker, Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne, any running backs? Would you make a deal for one of these receivers one-on-one?
When I looked at this question, those Etienne and Kenneth Walker were two that I would consider for Lamb. Probably not for Adams.
Yeah, no, I agree with those two names. I feel like that's kind of the range. And then you go to the rankings and see who's plus and minus from there in terms of who's available. But again, I feel like because at least in my leagues, everyone's very stingy with their running backs. Yeah. So they're going to ask for that, and they're going to ask for a little bit more. If you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to want your elite tight end. So it's just one of those things.
Everyone makes fun of people who draft running back heavy, and then by about week 5 or 6, your
phone
you want
all of
these?
Up. No, you can't have all my players. Like, what is this?
I got all these October friends, I call them, because October, they need running backs, and all of a sudden I'm the most popular guy in the league. So I love it, guys. Let's go ahead and round out the show here with a little waivers and in the scope.
Requesting permission to engage.
In the scope. All right, in the scope. We're going to start out by talking about some of the mainstream options. We're just going to kind of run through the list quickly, because if you're listening to the audio version of this, waivers have already run. If you're listening to it on Tuesday night here live with us on YouTube, thank you. You can still probably get these guys. Matthew Stafford at the quarterback position, and I have to tell another horror story with this. I lose Anthony Richardson in my big money home league, and I go to the waiver. I go to the waiver wire at a. Okay, sorry about that, folks. A little lag there. But I go to the waiver wire, and I attempt to get Matthew Stafford. It's 4:04 o'clock, and I click on him, and then I click out to see who else is available. Then I click back in on him, and the game had started at 4:05. ESPN was telling me it was a 4:25 game. So I had to settle for a Geno Smith who had been dropped on the waivers. But another horror story for me for not acting quick enough.
Got to be faster than that.
I know. Let's go to the running back position, though. But at quarterback, if you guys do need someone, Matthew Stafford's the top claim this week. At RB, Jaleel McLaughlin, we talked about him last week. He's still good this week. More of a stash, I think, at this point, because we don't know if Javonte will be at full strength this week or not. Emari Demercado, I want to talk about him real quickly. Sam, any interest in the undrafted free agent out of TCU? He stepped up against Michigan last year for TCU. He played a big part in what was a big loss for TCU in the national championship game, but he's a talented guy. He got a shot here. No James Conner for at least next 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think given the opportunity and the fact that the Arizona Cardinals team and the players don't know that they should be tanking, everything else in terms of management and leadership probably want them to. And it seems like the players have absolutely no interest in buying in on that. So I think because of that, I don't mind going out and making an ad like this. I mean, what's the worst that could happen is that he doesn't pan out. But at this point, given, again, going into week 6 and depending on your waiver wire situation, there might not be too many other options for you. So you want to just make sure that you're eager and getting into the waiver wire pool. Just make yourself available so that you have the opportunity for someone to go off, because we're all looking for someone like Achane that you didn't have before, you didn't plan on going into the season with and winning your league. He could be a guy. You never know. It's lots of opportunity, and what gives you fantasy value is opportunity, and that's huge for him.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I prefer Demercado over McLaughlin by quite a bit, to be honest, if you need help right away. Because, Javonte Williams is likely coming back. He put in a full practice this week. And they have Samaje Perine. So, I mean, his competition, even though he had a good game, scored a touchdown, he did outsnap and kind of outperform Perine. But I'm more worried about him getting more work than I am with Demercado, who has to deal with Keontae Ingram, who's coming back from a neck injury. We really don't know if he's any good. They did sign Tony Jones Jr., but I just, for the next 4 weeks, I think Demercado is going to have, and just this last week, Jaleel McLaughlin had like a 33% snap share. Demercado had like a 77% snap share. So I just think if you're looking for somebody to help you right away, it's Demercado over McLaughlin by a lot for me.
Again, like you said, just give an opportunity in terms of requisite touches. I think it's got to go. You got to go there. I mean, I'm someone that's also going to be putting similar bids in. Like I don't know about you guys, but I like to throw in waiver claims all over the place and see where the FAAB falls. So if you're putting in claims for a couple of these guys, I think that's the right move. And whoever I get, I'm going to be excited to get. I think that Roschon Johnson again is another running back that I'm looking forward to getting. You're waiting for him to clear the concussion protocol, but as soon as that's cleared, you feel great about starting him. You just need to cast a wide net for all these running backs.
100% with you guys. Tyjae Spears, another name we've kind of been screaming from the mountaintops for a couple months now. Justice Hill, Chuba Hubbard, Kendre Miller had a little bit of a pop.
Kendre Miller had a good showing this week.
Yeah. Donta Foreman, I think we know what the Bears think about him. He hasn't been active all year, but if
he's been a healthy scratch, if they're not that excited to just even give him some face time, I don't think that you should be excited to have him on your team.
It would be a 1 week rental if Roschon doesn't go, probably. Then you can maybe get some usage. If you want to play the game of the Patriots, which I don't really think I want to do, I don't even know why I'm listed anymore, but Zeke Elliott, he's getting as many opportunities as Ramondre right now, but
nothing to do with that backfield. Unfortunately, I love Ramondre, but
I'm walking away from them. Goodbye.
At least some interesting names at wide receivers we could possibly offer you. Josh Palmer, Josh Downs. Are you joshing me here? KJ Osborne as well. Any interested in either of those guys? How are we feeling about it here? Also, Josh Reynolds. So joshing you 3 times, Scott.
Lots of Josh.
Lots of Joshes. Lots of shares of Josh. I mean, I think of these, I'm personally most excited about KJ Osborne, given his opportunity and the how many targets he's already been seeing consistently. So, with Justin Jefferson out, you've obviously got all those targets to go around. So I think for me, I like that one the most. And then I would probably go Josh Downs, and then, which is a close tie for me with Palmer, and then Reynolds after that. Yeah.
Scott, you pointed out Josh Downs earlier in the season had a huge target share when Minshew was at quarterback just a couple weeks ago, 12 targets.
I mean, he's been going toe to toe with Pittman, just as far as the looks he's getting and the usage. I mean, they're both right up. They're both getting starter level targets. And Josh Downs has been doing he hasn't had a huge splash fantasy game yet. He's been good in PPR formats, but I think his arrow's pointed up. Anytime a rookie wide receiver comes in and plays that much right away, and is actually effective, it's pointing up. I mean, touchdowns will come eventually, but at only a 10.9% rostership. I mean, I'm a little biased because I already have him everywhere. Dynasty redraft, like I have him on SFB. So I really liked him coming into the season, and I liked his situation because I didn't really buy Alec Pierce.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty for that for sure.
He's another wind sprinter. He's another So I like Josh Downs, but it's interesting because KJ Osborne has kind of been that in his career too. He's seen the field a lot.
Runs a shit ton of routes every single week.
But with this injury, I love Jordan Addison, but he's a rookie. I mean, next man up as far as veteran goes is KJ Osborne. So I'm very interested to see what happens for him because they, like I said, they throw the ball more than anybody in the league.
Tight ends quickly. Logan Thomas, we touched on him last week. Hopefully you grabbed him before waivers ran or after waivers ran last week before the Thursday night football game. He's still interested in getting just a very high target share in Washington. They love to favor the tight end. Eric Bieniemy up to his old tricks, I said last week. Jonnu Smith, tight end, Atlanta Falcons. It's
the cruel nightmare is over. Pitts finally outplayed him.
It did. But Jonnu still rightfully in his own got
still
8 targets.
Yep.
Dude, they throw to the tight end like twice as much as anybody else. It's crazy.
Yeah.
He's free. So he's a pretty good pickup if you're stuck.
Yeah, target rate there. We're gonna round it out tonight, guys. Within the scope, any deep league targets, any targets we haven't touched on, who you can grab after waivers run. Scott, I'll throw it to you first here.
All right, so mine, it's not super appealing because he plays for the New York Football Giants, who don't look very good right now. But it's Wan'Dale.
All right. Well, we are having a little bit of technical.
Is that me?
Yes, you were cutting out. You're good now, Scott. Sorry, okay. Guys. Having a very unlike us to have some tech issues.
I might have too many tabs open. But small sample size. But since he came back, he's been the most targeted. He's run the most routes on the of the wide receivers. Darren Waller out targeted him in week 5. But I think his arrow's pointing up again. It's deep league. He's 6% rostered right now. So, but I think if there's going to be a receiver that kind of takes the baton in that group, I think it's going to be Wan'Dale.
Yeah, I love it. We mentioned him last week in this segment, and he still did not get added at all. So
did we? Sorry.
Yeah. Hey, all good. Eric mentioned him, but apparently Eric's word was not good enough.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I was gonna do Jonathan Mingo, and you were like, "Nope, Eric already took Jonathan Mingo."
Yep. The brains are together here at IBT. Sam, anyone we haven't mentioned that you think we should be paying attention to, potentially even after the waivers clear here in week 6?
Sure. I mean, I think he's rostered a decent amount, but Rashee Rice, I think, is someone that needs to be paid attention to just in terms of pass catchers for the Chiefs. He's leading in red zone targets, which is insane because you'd assume that would go to Travis Kelce. But, Kelce's been a little bit dinged up, used in other ways. And apparently Mahomes loves him some Rashee Rice. I think that Mahomes is really having that hurt and missing the Tyreek Hill. It's been over a year, but he's looking for his number one guy. And I feel like that could be Rice going forward rest of the season. So he obviously had a touchdown this last game. His last touchdown before that was week 1. But I do think that he's trending the right direction, especially given the matchups he has coming up. He has Denver, the Chargers, Denver again, and then the Dolphins, who love to have the most high-scoring games possible, which I can imagine that being the case for this one. And then they have a bye. So I think you love this 4-week stretch coming up for him. So I think that he's a good flex favorite for me, especially in deep leagues.
I love it, man. I feel like this is another name we've kind of been screaming this year is Rashee Rice, and I have him stashed on a lot of rosters, and we want to see, like, before we put him in our lineup, we need to see more routes ran. That's what we haven't seen yet from him. I think it was something absurd, like 12 or 15 here in week number 5, but the production is still there. He's still like a desperation. If you need to throw a flex play in there, he's a desperation play. And it's just going to get better and better for him down the stretch. So,
well, I mean, that red zone stat that Sam pointed out, that should not be ignored. Like, if Patrick Mahomes is looking your way in the red zone, especially if he's running limited routes, but he's in packages near the red zone, yeah, that's a flex worthy play.
Hell yeah. That's like the high value of the high value targets right there for sure. I'll round us out with Cade Otton. Again, it's not a sexy play, guys. I get it. But call it recency bias, call it believing in the hype of Baker Mayfield. But I really do. I think Baker Mayfield's actually gonna have a pretty good season, and it's gonna last here. Top 7 in completion percentage, top 8 in TD percentage, top 8 in QB rating. Like, those are kind of sticky stats, I feel like, other than the TD percentage. That could come down. But I think the completion rate and the QB rating are here to stay. And Cade Otton right now, the target share is not there, Scott. We always want to see like a 19-20% target share for a tight end to be valuable. But we don't know Mike Evans' status here right now. And he's number 1 among tight ends in route participation. So it's another guy. He's putting in the good work. The legs are sore at the end of the day, but he's been efficient with every target he gets. Number 5 in quarterback rating per target. So when Baker targets Cade Otton, good things happen here. Number 9 fantasy points per target among the tight ends as well. Any interest in the possible third option in Tampa Bay, or even second option if Mike Evans doesn't go this week?
I mean, it's a good deep cut. I mean, it's
deep. It's deep as hell for sure.
It's a pretty deep one, but I mean, the Buccaneers, especially Mayfield, have been another pleasant surprise this year. Another kind of based on based on poor play, but a lot of it based on reputation as well. And he's got more fantasy points per game than Trevor Lawrence right now. I mean, I don't know if that is good for Mayfield or bad for Lawrence, probably a little of both. But yeah, I mean, with the tight end landscape, I mean, I'm not probably picking up Otton and starting him right away, but like, he's definitely a potential guy that we could be talking about seeing more usage and being more valuable in a couple of weeks, like Logan Thomas.
I feel like we said the same thing a week ago about Thomas too.
Oh, and Logan Thomas has such a good matchup this week. Oh, the Falcons. I love it. I like this call. Plus he's a UW alumni, so I'm always into that.
Sam, can we talk you into any Cade Otton? Third best matchup for tight ends this week, Detroit, and then next week, who Scott was just talking about, Atlanta, second best. It's juicy.
I mean, I think it really depends on my roster construction if I feel like I've got enough bench depth for something this deep.
Okay,
but yeah, I think it really all just depends, because I mean, maybe I'm starting, maybe I've been starting Darren Waller so long that I'm so burnt out that I'm just like, okay, give me any other tight end, because there's literally no one else. And if it's like a 16-team league, sure. But I think it really just depends on my roster construction if I'm going to make this deep of a cut. But with both of your votes of confidence, I will take a little bit of a longer look at him.
Hell yeah. I'm firing him up in Scott Fishbowl this week. I kind of have to.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah. Desperate time calls for desperate measures.
I'm playing Josh Downs this week in Scott Fish. Let's go.
Okay, there we go. We appreciate the IBT family hanging out with us tonight. Sam, we appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. Tell us how we can best support you, not just throughout the rest of this fantasy football season, but moving forward as well.
Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate you guys having me on. It was so much fun. Love getting to answer some, questions too from the chat. So appreciate everyone tuning in. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Samantha R. Holt and on Instagram at Sam_awesome. And you can check out all the work that's being done over at fantasylife.com. If you haven't already, sign up for the newsletter. It comes out every day with amazing little tidbits of info to help you start and get your win every single week. And we're releasing tools, what feels like every single week, that help you set those lineups. We've got the amazing start sit tool, the trade rater one that I mentioned earlier, waiver wire hub. So much to check out, so make sure you do so. Oh, and also tune in for our Fantasy Life podcast that comes out every day this week. I go ahead and I record on Thursdays, and our episode drops on Fridays. It's the matchups show with myself, Chris Allen, and Cooter Doodle. It is a lot of fun.
Ooh, that's a banger of a cast.
It's a fun cast. Stuff. We have guests every week as well, so make sure you guys tune in.
Awesome.
Yes, Scott, I know you put me on a couple of those fantasy life tools this off season.
I can't honestly. I mean, whether Sam was here repping Fantasy Life or not, the amount of free like valuable data that you can just go get at Fantasy Life just like that, it's pretty amazing.
Hell yeah. Well, guys, make sure that you check that out. Make sure you check out Sam as well. Thank you all so much for kicking it with us on this awesome Tuesday. It was a blast. And we'll see you guys here on Friday with Eric and I for our Start Sit show. Until then, you know what to do. Keep it in between.